Wendy slipped out the door with a mischievous wink. I won't be long at the party, babe. Just a couple of drinks, then I'll be back. I barely looked up from my laptop, nodding absent-mindedly. I was deep in the middle of a work deadline, and honestly, I didn't think much of it. This was Wendy, my bold, outspoken, no-nonsense wife. She had mentioned her plans at the last minute, but I figured it was just another spontaneous girls' night. Fine, I thought. I wasn't the type to question her every move. But here I was, well past 1 a.m., growing more frustrated by the second. I stood in the kitchen, tapping my fingers on the counter, feeling irritation build with every passing minute. No texts, no calls, not even a hint of where she might be. Then, suddenly, the silence was broken by the sharp ring of her phone. I'd almost forgotten it was charging on the counter. My stomach dropped when I saw the name on the screen. Noah? Who the hell was Noah? Something inside me urged me to pick up, but I didn't. I let it ring. Moments later, a new notification appeared. Missed call from Noah. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was fire. Fire? What the hell? Before I could even process that, another message came through. Is your husband home tonight? Where can we go round to? My blood boiled. This wasn't just a harmless night out. Something shady was going on. I had to get to the bottom of it. I grabbed my keys, determined to find out where she was. No more waiting. I needed answers. I was out the door before I even realized what I was doing. My heart was pounding, a mix of anger and a more unsettling feeling. Fear. Not fear of what I might find, but fear that I already knew. Wendy wasn't at some party. There was no girls' night. And Noah? I was going to track him down. I slammed my car into gear, my grip tight on the wheel, knuckles white. Her phone buzzed again with more messages from him, each one worse than the last. You look so good in that red dress. Can't wait to rip it off again. I couldn't believe it. My mind raced, but I stayed focused. Where the hell could she be? Then it hit me. She'd mentioned a bar once, the Stumble Inn. She said it was a dive where a friend hung out. A place to unwind. I'd always been suspicious, but I couldn't think of anywhere else to go. I hit the gas, speeding toward the bar. As I pulled into the lot, a mix of dread and adrenaline settled in my gut. The neon sign flickered above the entrance, casting a sickly red glow on the crowd outside. I scanned the parking lot, and there it was. Wendy's car, tucked away in the back, almost like she didn't want anyone to see it. My heart pounded louder as I walked toward the door, pushing through the crowd to get inside. The music blared and the place was packed with people, but I barely noticed. All that mattered was finding her, and that Noah. I scanned the room, my eyes finally locking on them. Wendy was sitting at the bar, her back to me, laughing with a guy who was way too close for comfort. His hand was casually resting on her leg, like he had every right to be there. My stomach dropped. It was like the floor disappeared beneath me. I couldn't hold back any longer. I pushed through the crowd, my heart hammering in my chest, shoving people out of the way. Every nerve in my body was on fire as I moved closer to her and him. Wendy. I called out, and she didn't notice me at first. She was too busy laughing at something Noah had said, her hand brushing his arm like it was perfectly normal. Who the hell was this guy? Without thinking, I slammed my hand onto her shoulder, spinning her around. The look on her face was priceless shock, her eyes wide as she froze, like a deer caught in headlights. For a moment, she blinked, clearly trying to understand how I had just appeared in front of her. What the hell is this? I spat, my voice louder than I meant, causing a few heads to turn. Wendy's face turned red, but it wasn't from guilt. No, it was annoyance. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she rolled her eyes, that infuriating smirk spreading across her face like she was dealing with a child. Oh, relax, Todd. It's not what you think, she said with a fake sweetness. I just needed a little time out, okay? This is just a friend. The word friend hit me like a slap. I glanced at Noah, who was looking back and forth between us, still grinning like an idiot. His hand hadn't even moved off her leg. The nerve of this guy. I turned back to her, my blood boiling. A friend? Huh? And what about that text he sent you about last night being fire? You think I'm an idiot? Wendy's smirk faltered for a moment, a brief flicker of uncertainty. But it quickly returned, colder than before. Jesus, Todd, you're being ridiculous. Stop embarrassing yourself. She shot a look at Noah, who just sat there, like this was all a joke. I saw red. My fist clenched, and before I could even stop myself, I lunged at him, throwing a punch that connected with Noah's jaw. The impact sent a shock through my arm, and the sound of flesh hitting bone rang out across the bar. Noah staggered back, crashing into his stool, The cocky grin wiped off his face. "Todd, stop." Wendy screamed, jumping to her feet, but her voice barely reached me. All I could feel was the anger, the raw betrayal, and every muscle in my body was burning with it. Noah wiped blood from his split lip, staring at me like he couldn't believe what had just happened. I half expected him to fight back, but instead, he just smirked again, like he had already won. "Really, man? Over her?" he said, spitting blood onto the floor. "She's not worth it." Those words hit harder than the punch. Not worth it. I turned to Wendy, my voice a low growl. "My wife isn't worth it?" She stood there, arms crossed, eyeing me like I was the crazy one. "Tell me the truth, Wendy," I said, struggling to control the rage in my voice. "How long has this been going on?" She didn't respond right away. She stood there, as if trying to decide what to say. For a split second, I thought I saw a hint of guilt in her eyes, but it was gone before I could even grasp it. "Does it really matter?" she finally said, her voice cold, emotionless. "If you want the truth, fine. It's been months." Months? The word hit me like a freight train. My whole body went numb, and I felt like I was sinking, like everything I thought I knew was just a lie. Months of betrayal, while I trusted her at home, and she was with him. Why? I asked before I could stop myself. The question felt pathetic the moment I said it. I shouldn't care. I should just walk away. But I needed to know. Wendy sighed, like she was bored with the whole conversation. "You're too easy, Todd. Too predictable. You're always working, always busy with your thing. And I wanted something exciting." The word exciting cut deeper than anything she'd said. All those late nights, all the trust I'd given her, and I was too easy? I stood there, fists trembling, my mind struggling to catch up with the absurdity of it all. Too easy? Predictable? After everything? After 6 years of marriage? Exciting. I echoed, my voice hollow. "So you're throwing away our marriage for a thrill? You betray me for this." I gestured toward Noah, who was sitting there, casually tending to his split lip like it was no big deal. Wendy just shrugged, her face completely blank. There was no remorse in her eyes, no trace of guilt. She didn't care. "It's not about ruining anything, Todd. I didn't plan for this. It just happened. We got too comfortable." Her calm tone infuriated me, as if we were talking about the weather instead of the wreckage she'd made of everything. "Comfortable?" I scoffed, my voice rising in disbelief. "So your big solution to being comfortable was to sleep with someone else?" She rolled her eyes, treating my anger like a child's tantrum. "Seriously, relax. This doesn't have to be the end of the world." The absurdity of her words slapped me in the face. Not the end of the world? Everything I had believed in, all the trust, the years we'd spent together, shattered like it meant nothing. I felt like a ghost, watching my life fall apart, feeling small, disposable. I turned to Noah, who was watching us like he was waiting for the next scene in a show. "Do you think this is funny?" I growled, taking a step toward him, fist clenched. He just raised his hands in a mock surrender, that smug grin never leaving his face. "Hey man, she came to me. I just gave her what she wanted. Not my fault you can't keep her entertained." Those words hit me harder than anything else. I felt my vision narrow, my rage boiling over. I was seconds away from letting everything go. But before I could act, Wendy stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "Todd, stop. You're making a fool of yourself," she snapped, her voice sharp, cutting through the noise of the bar. Gone was the warmth I used to know. All that was left was an icy coldness that made my skin crawl. "You're not going to fix this with punches. It's done." I stood there, staring at her, my chest heaving as I struggled to wrap my mind around what she had become. I felt completely betrayed, exposed, and yet she stood there, unmoved. Something snapped inside me as I thought back to all those late nights she worked late, all the weekends she spent with her friends. It all made sense now. Every excuse she made, every strange text I had dismissed. How could I have been so blind? And here she was, looking at me with that condescending look, as though I was the one at fault. I took a deep breath, shaking with the effort to control my emotions. "You want excitement, Wendy? Go ahead. Embrace it all." My voice wavered with a mix of anger and hopelessness, but beneath it all was a finality I couldn't ignore. Her eyes narrowed, as if she couldn't believe that I wasn't just going to fall back into line like I always did. But this time was different. This wasn't just another argument I could push aside. I stepped back, letting the full weight of her betrayal settle in. The gravity of it was overwhelming, like a crushing wave. I was done. No more yelling, no more pleading, no more letting her drag me through her games. "You want out?" "Fine," I said, my voice steady, each word calculated, like I had been rehearsing this moment in my head for months. Consider yourself free. Go ahead, Wendy. Run around with your new toy. I'm done. For a brief moment, I saw surprise flash across her face. Maybe she hadn't expected me to stand my ground. Maybe she thought I'd keep letting her drag me through this, playing her games until I broke. But I wasn't playing anymore. Not a chance. Noah finally decided to make his presence known. I think I'll head out, he said, offering Wendy an awkward pat on the shoulder, like he was congratulating her for a job well done. He then turned to me with a smug smirk. Good luck, man. Then he slipped away into the crowd, disappearing like my life was just another episode of some reality show. Look at you, Wendy said, crossing her arms like she was the one who had been wronged. Her tone was laced with disdain. You act like you're some kind of martyr. Per Todd, doing everything right. But let's not pretend you've been perfect, she added, her voice dripping with contempt. You've been checked out for months. Her words hit me like a slap to the face. Checked out? I shot back, my voice tight with fury. I've been working my ass off to keep us together while you were out sleeping around behind my back. You think just because you work hard, I'm supposed to sit here like some loyal puppy? Her smirk deepened, cutting me to the bone. It's not enough, Todd. I need more than your boring routine. The cruelty of her words took my breath away. How could she be so cold? I had given her everything, and it still wasn't enough. But instead of exploding, I just nodded, my voice low and heavy with finality. Yeah, well, I hope Noah gives you what you're looking for. I'm done trying to figure out what the hell you need. She blinked, clearly not expecting me to walk away with such resolve. Todd, don't act like you're doing me a favor. You're the one who couldn't keep up. You didn't even see it coming. I stared at her, my heart aching as the last shred of love I had for her turned to dust. The reality of our broken relationship settled in, a painful realization that this was it. I was ready to walk away. I thought back to all the late nights I waited for her to come home, the mornings I made her favorite coffee, the vacations I meticulously planned that she casually canceled. All for nothing. Yeah, I muttered, breaking the silence. You're right. I didn't see it coming, but I see it now. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the bar, leaving her standing there in her self-righteousness. As I slid into my car and slammed the door, the weight of everything hit me all at once. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. My mind was a storm of angry, painful thoughts, swirling around uncontrollably. I had just walked away from my marriage. 6 years of my life had fallen apart in a single night. I didn't start the car immediately. I sat there, staring blankly at the dashboard, trying to catch my breath. My thoughts raced, angry thoughts, painful thoughts, the kind that choke you. How had I let it get this far? The signs had been there all along. Her late nights, her emotional distance, the sudden girls' nights that popped up out of nowhere. How had I convinced myself it was all in my head? How could I have trusted her so blindly? Then my phone buzzed in the passenger seat, snapping me out of my spiral. I glanced at the screen. It was a message from Wendy. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it. But a part of me still wanted to know what she had to say. I opened the message, expecting some weak excuse or attempt to fix things. Instead, my stomach sank. You're overreacting. We could have worked this out, but you had to go and ruin it. Maybe if you put this much effort into our marriage, I wouldn't have needed Noah. I stared at the screen, my blood boiling once more. She was still blaming me, still acting like I was the cause of everything, the reason she cheated. A surge of rage coursed through me, so overwhelming it felt like I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I typed back. You're unbelievable. Don't text me again. I hit send, tossing the phone into the passenger seat. Finally, I turned the ignition. The engine roared to life, drowning out the chaos in my mind. I pulled out of the parking lot, the street lights blurring by as I sped down the road, my thoughts racing as fast as my car. What now? I had no idea where I was going. I just needed to drive. To escape that bar, to escape Wendy, to escape it all. The night felt suffocating, heavy, and my mind kept replaying the scene over and over. Her laughing with him, her face showing no remorse, no regret. Everything felt unreal. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. We were supposed to be happy. I had worked so hard to give her everything she wanted. I had tried to be the husband I thought I should be. And for what? So she could throw it all away for some fleeting thrill with a guy like Noah? My grip on the steering wheel tightened, my anger turning into something darker, a sharp pain in my chest that threatened to tear through the fragile walls I was desperately trying to maintain. I was hurt, humiliated. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was the feeling of being utterly shattered, and I had no idea what to do next. My hands were on autopilot, guiding the car through dark, empty streets. The city was silent. Everyone else was tucked away in their homes, living their normal lives, unaware of the chaos that had just consumed mine. But I couldn't quiet my thoughts. Wendy's words echoed in my head. "You're overreacting. We could have worked this out if you just put in more effort." It felt like I was supposed to fix the mess she had made, like her betrayal was just a natural consequence of my failure. It was sickening. I pulled into an empty parking lot, the tires screeching as I slammed on the brakes. I threw the car into park and sat there, gripping the wheel until my arms ached, staring into the darkness as though it could offer me answers. What the hell had happened to my life? The wall I had built around my anger and humiliation shattered, crashing down all at once, suffocating me. Before I even knew what was happening, I was pounding the steering wheel, each strike sending shockwaves of rage through my body. "Fuck," I yelled, slamming my fist over and over. My whole body shook as months, maybe years, of frustration and pain exploded out of me. I hit the dashboard so hard I thought I might break something, but I didn't care. Nothing mattered anymore. Everything I had worked for, everything I had believed in, was gone. All that was left was this useless, futile rage. And then, just like that, I collapsed. My head fell against the steering wheel, breathing coming in ragged gasps, my chest heaving as tears welled up in my eyes. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want her, or anyone, to know how deeply she had broken me. But I couldn't stop it. The tears came quietly at first, then with increasing intensity, until I was sobbing uncontrollably. My body shook as I sat there, my forehead pressed against the wheel. The cold reality finally sank in. She didn't love me. She never had. Maybe she had once, but that was gone long ago. All those nights I stayed up late, thinking she was working or out with friends, she had been with him. Every moment I thought I was building something real, something lasting, she had been tearing it apart behind my back. And now, I was left to pick up the pieces, while she carried on, as if nothing had changed. It felt like I didn't matter at all. Sitting there, tears streaming down my face, I realized just how utterly alone I was. How foolish I had been to trust her, to let her betrayal go unchecked for so long. Eventually, the tears slowed, but the pain remained, gnawing at me from the inside. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on me like a heavy fog. What now? My home felt distant, foreign, the emptiness of her absence swallowing any sense of comfort. All I had was this car, an empty shell of what used to be, and a life that had just imploded before my eyes. Hours seemed to pass as I leaned against the steering wheel, the anger and pain gradually fading, leaving behind an all-consuming weariness. I was drained. No more shouting, no more fighting with myself, no more tears. But one thought kept repeating in my mind. This is it. It was over. There was no turning back. Wendy had left nothing behind but the wreckage of everything we once had. She didn't care. She wasn't sorry. She only craved excitement, adventure, and I was just an obstacle to her new, thrill-seeking lifestyle. As much as it hurt, I had to face the harsh reality. The life we'd built together was a lie. Wiping my tear-streaked face with the back of my hand, a small flicker of clarity cut through the fog of despair. I knew what needed to be done, even though every part of me resisted the thought. There were no more decisions to make. The truth was as clear as day. Divorce. With newfound resolve, I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling as I unlocked it, knowing this would mark the end of everything. No more questions. No more searching for answers. I dialed my lawyer's number and, despite the late hour, left a voicemail. My voice was steady, almost cold, as I outlined the details and requested to begin divorce proceedings. When I hung up, I felt a strange mixture of emotions flood over me. It felt like I had just signed away not only years of my life but also a part of myself. I had severed the last ties that bound me to everything I once believed in. Yet, beneath the crushing weight of that loss, a small flicker of relief ignited within me. I wouldn't beg for scraps of affection or understanding anymore. I was done playing her game. As I set my phone down, it buzzed again, a text from her. I froze for a moment before opening it, bracing myself for more of her manipulative nonsense. "Come home, Todd. We need to talk. I didn't mean for things to go like this. Let's figure it out, okay? You're not thinking straight right now." I almost laughed. Did she really think I'd just come crawling back with a few empty words and promises? She wanted to keep the safety net I provided while chasing thrills with someone else? It was infuriating. I wasn't her fool anymore. With a sharp breath, my fingers flew over the screen as I typed. "It's already figured out. I'll be sending divorce papers soon. Don't bother coming home. I'm done." The moment I hit send, it felt like a massive weight lifted off my chest. The finality of it didn't crush me. It felt like fresh air filling my lungs. For the first time in what felt like years, I was in control again. There was no going back. And strangely enough, I was okay with that. The drive back felt different. Gone was the rage, the panic. Now there was just a calm after the storm. The world outside my window looked the same, but everything inside me had changed. I wasn't the same guy anymore. The one who let her manipulate him. The one who spent countless nights wondering why she kept pulling away. That version of me was gone, buried beneath the weight of betrayal. When I pulled up to the house, a realization hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't my home anymore. It was just a shell, full of memories of what once was. But that was fine. I wasn't planning on staying. I stepped inside, the silence greeting me. It wasn't comforting, but it wasn't suffocating either. I didn't even look around. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I grabbed a suitcase from the closet, throwing in whatever clothes and essentials I could, not caring if I forgot something. I wasn't attached to any of it anymore, certainly not to her. I moved quickly, like a ghost, passing by photos of us, anniversary gifts, little trinkets from a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. On the kitchen counter sat her phone, still charging. It made me laugh bitterly. Her lifeline to Noah. But I didn't touch it. She'd come home, find it, and realize that everything she thought she controlled was slipping through her fingers. Before I left, I scribbled a note, short and to the point. No explanations, no dramatic goodbyes, just two simple words. It's over. I tossed the note onto the counter next to her phone and walked out, not glancing back. As I drove away, the cool night air washed over me, sharp and refreshing, like I could finally breathe again. The weight that had been pressing on my chest for so long was lifting, bit by bit. I had no idea where I was going, maybe a hotel, maybe crashing with a friend. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't care. The future was mine to shape, free from the lies and betrayals I had once tried to protect. In this newfound freedom, I learned a hard truth. Trust isn't something to give blindly. People will twist it, take advantage of it, and break it if you let them. But more importantly, I realized I was stronger than I ever thought I could be, stronger than her betrayal, stronger than the wreckage she left behind. This experience wouldn't define me. So to anyone reading this, anyone who has been through something similar, I say, let go. Don't wait for answers that will never come. Don't cling to someone who doesn't value you. Walk away before it destroys you completely. I did. And for the first time in months, I finally felt free. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe to the channel.